just for your classmates who are not jumping on. So they will be able to. You want to say hi to them? Huh? Want to say hi to them? Yeah. All right. It's going to be, I'm going to bring it to you so you can say hi to him. It's going to be all of the sophomores, though, that will see it.
Hello.
All right. Anybody else? Okay. All right. That will, hey, now you can see whether or not they actually watch it, Jacob. Yeah, I know. I will give you a piece of paper. Yes. All right. So let's talk about commas. What's my number one cardinal comma rule? Yep. If you don't know a rule, don't use a comma. Very good. All right. Here's another one. When we have items in a series, 3 or more things, you are going to separate them with commas. Everybody know that, right? So if I said Mason sat, wrote, and give me another one. That's a person.
Sat, wrote, and ate.
And ate. All right. So it's going to be Mason sat, comma, wrote, comma, and ate. They all have to be verbs, right? Because that's a parallel structure. Look. You're welcome. All right. So but these you don't need to write down. We've already written them down, right, Lamar? Do you agree? Okay. Parallel structure. We just talked about that. Rule number 3, if items in a series are joined by and, commas are not needed. We already talked about that. All right. Commas, use commas to separate 2 or more adjectives that modify the same noun. Y'all remember this rule? If you have 2 adjectives in a row, this is why parts of speech are important, so that you can figure out this kind of stuff. So if I have 2 adjectives, they're both describing the same noun, they need a comma in between them, right? So I gave you this example. Ben is a cheerful, likable person. Y'all remember the test I told you whether or not you need a comma? Anybody remember? If I can do what to these 2 words? If I can reverse them. So I can say Ben is a likable, cheerful person. Since I can reverse them, it means I need a comma there between them, right? Everybody agree? The other hint was if I can, in my head, put and between them and it sounds okay, then it also needs a comma. Ben is a cheerful and likable person, right? So therefore, it needs a comma between the 2. Everybody got it? All right. The dog was smelly and stinky and hungry. Or I could say the dog was smelly, comma, stinky and hungry, right? All right. Use comma and dates. Remember when we put a date, if we're going to say what day of the week it is, there needs to be a comma after it. And then you get to say the month and this particular day of the month, and then another comma, and then the year. You do not use dates if you just have the month and the year. Y'all remember that? Everybody remember that? Okay. We use commas to separate the parts of the address. The letter is to Rita Wilson, comma, 3452 Stein Street, comma, Mobile, comma, Alabama. The only place you do not put a comma is where? Between Alabama and the zip code. Between the state and zip, you don't need a comma. All right, we do not use commas to set off items separated by prepositions. We use commas to set off non-essential clauses. Y'all remember we talked about a non-essential clause, something that can be removed from a sentence, and then we talked about all these different kinds of non-essential clauses. Y'all remember that? Participial phrases, right? We talked about W words. This was on your test. Everybody listen, it'll be on your exam too. You need to know the 5 kinds of participial phrases. Where do we put the commas around a participial phrase if the participial phrase or the non-essential clause is in the middle of the sentence? Where do you put them? The front and the back, right? The beginning of the clause, the ending of the clause. If it starts the sentence, if the sentence starts with a non-essential clause, where do you put the comma? At the end of the clause. Very good. All right. The appositives, y'all remember appositives, noun clauses, they describe the subject. Remember, parentheticals are considered non-essential clauses, like of course, indeed, however, right? Y'all remember all that? All right. All right. Okay, rule number 7. This is where you're going to pick up your commas. So find your old comma notes, and now we're going to write rule number 7. There are 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I got 5 more rules for you. We're going to cover them today. We're going to cover them quickly, and then we'll be done with grammar. So just hang with me. I got 30 minutes. Rule number 7, right? So this is what rule number 7 says. Use commas to set off introductory words like yes, no, well, oh, why, when they are used at the beginning of a sentence. So if you start a sentence with an introductory word, it needs to be introductory word, comma. You got it? Okay, everybody write it down. Rule number 7. Y'all want me to write it up here too? If a sentence starts with an introductory word, oh, that's not a good one, must be set off by a comma. All right, and I'm going to give you some examples of introductory words, right? Yes, no, well, oh. All right, everybody got it? Y'all see that? Put it in your brain. Got it in your brain? Weston, you got it in your brain?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, stay with me. Last 25 minutes of grammar for the semester. It's good news. Stay with me, Jacob. Rule number 8. Use commas to set off a person's name or other words that should be other words that stand for a person when they are used in a direct address. So, for example, if I said, Mason, write this down, and I was going to write that down, it should be Mason, comma, write this down, because I'm directly addressing Mason, and I'm starting the sentence with that. Does that make sense? So I said, Lamar, write your notes. Victoria, don't fall asleep. Jacob, you got that. Weston, do you understand? I'm directly addressing each one of you, right? So it's got to be set off by a comma. Or let's say I directly addressed you with words that were not necessarily your name, but that I was still addressing you, like my fellow Americans. I'm still directly addressing you. Or if I said 5th period English 10, I would still be directly addressing you. So it needs to be set off by a comma. Got it? Okay, everybody write it down. Rule number 8. Ooh, number 8. Everybody write this down, like with your pens. Use commas to set off. This food down here is going to kill me. Direct addresses. Okay. Got it? That makes sense? Okay, easy, right? All right, rule number 9. See, we're moving through them. We got 7, 8, now we just got 9, 10, 11. We're moving right through it. Use commas to set off introductory clauses, participial phrases, or 2 or more adjoining prepositional phrases when they begin a sentence, okay? So if you have an introductory clause that begins your sentence, you're going to need to set it off with a comma. Like, let me show you. And they're different kinds. This is a participial phrase that is beginning the sentence. Thinking the alarm was set, comma. Alex forgot to wake up this morning. So this is what we call an introductory clause, right? And it needs to be set off with a comma. These introductory clauses can be participial phrases like this one because it's verb plus ing, or it can be 2 or more prepositional phrases, and I'll show you an example of that in a minute. Okay, so anytime you have an introductory clause to begin the sentence, it needs to be set off with a comma. So rule number 9, set off introductory phrases that begin the sentence with commas. All right, and those can be participial phrases, they can be prepositional phrases. Everybody look at this one. In the middle of the night. So this tells me if I have 2 or more prepositional phrases adjoining, they need to be set off by a comma if they start the sentence. So in the middle, in is a preposition, and then of the night, of is a preposition. So I have 2 prepositional phrases, one after the other, that are beginning my sentence, so they need to be set off with a comma. Everybody got it? Jacob, you writing your notes down? Tell me you are. Come on.
I am.
Come on. But tell me the truth. You got to do it. You got it.
Wait, which one do you want to hear?
I want the truth, and then I want you to do the truth, right? Okay. Rule number 10. This one you know. We've talked about it at length. Rule number 10. You are going to use a comma and a fan voice conjunction when you're joining two sentences together, right? Everybody knows this one. This one's easy. Use a comma and a fan voice conjunction. Y'all tell me what fan voice are. Y'all are asleep.
Oh, or, and, nor, but, or, yet. So.
Very good. And they're up there. All right, everybody write rule number 10. Do it. You're going to use fan voice, a comma, then a fan voice conjunction. Are you done? All right.
I put it beside your
Okay,
computer.
thank you. And here, this is your, there's your notebook.
Is it graded?
Yes. All right. Everybody got it?
Is this the last one?
Last one.
Knew it.
Okay. Okay, so look at this example here, though. We only have 3 weeks left in the semester. Do y'all agree that that's a complete sentence? We only have 3 weeks left in the semester. Is that a complete sentence? Yes. Okay, because we have, what's the subject? Look at it and tell me.
On the back.
What's the subject?
No, on the back
Oh,
of the paper.
I thought you said Krispy Kreme. Right here.
Yeah, me too.
You heard Krispy Kreme
I
too?
did.
All right. All right, so what's the subject of this sentence? Yes. We. Very good. What's the verb? Have. Very good. All right, then the second one is many students are ready for Christmas. What's the
Students
subject?
are ready. Students.
Students and then are. Very good. So I have 2 sentences here, so I have to join with a comma and a fan voice conjunction. See, you got it.
Yep.
All right, number 11. This is the last one, but it's the most important one. It drives me crazy when people don't do this. Last but not least, use commas to set off dependent clauses at the beginning of a sentence that are created using subordinating conjunctions. Okay?
Big word.
And yes, it is, but you can write it. All right, so here we go. I want you to memorize the subordinating conjunctions. Here's why. Everybody write everything down that's up there. Rule number 11. Use a comma. Is that how I put it? To set off dependent clauses created when you begin a sentence with a subordinating conjunction. All right, last but not least, memorize subordinating conjunctions. All right. Okay, everybody listen to this really quickly. If you ever begin a sentence with one of these words, although, because, after, as, before, if you start a sentence with this, here's what you create, Lamar. What do you create? Do you know? If I start my sentence with, because Lamar was in class, what have I created? Is that a sentence?
Dependent clause.
It is a dependent clause. Thank you, Mason. It is a dependent clause, and dependent clauses must be set off by a comma if they begin the sentence, right?
Last time I checked,
So-
it's not Lamar.
If I said, because Lamar was in class, he took the test, all right? So you, anytime you begin, you got, yes.
So you know how you said you gotta put like you say no, you gotta put a comma after it. So say what if like so somebody asks you a question and you say no because do you have to put 2 commas?
Okay, so, good, that is a good question. If you said, you wouldn't put no right behind because would have, so, okay,
I'm
so,
talking about fun because, so like.
Wait, that was really,
because-
that was really.
so you would say no, comma, because I wasn't ready. So, or because I wasn't ready to take the test, I waited another day. So then it would be no, comma, because I wasn't ready to take the test, comma, I waited another day. So here's the thing, these create a dependent clause. You don't put the comma right after the subordinating conjunction, you put them at the end of the clause. Let me show you an example. All right. Look at these examples. Yes. All right, let's look at these examples. This right here is a subordinating conjunction. All right, so when I start a sentence with it, I'm going to create a dependent clause, and here's the dependent clause. When she tried to call. So that's what's got to be set off. The comma comes at the end of the dependent clause. That makes sense? So here is actually the real sentence. The line was disconnected. So when she tried to call, comma, the line was disconnected. But when she tried to call, it's not a sentence. It's dependent. It's got to have the rest of there. All right. So here's another example. If is an example of subordinating conjunction. When you start a sentence with a subordinating conjunction, you create a dependent clause. So if you made an A on the test, that is your dependent clause. It's got to have a comma at the end of it. Does that make sense? All right. Here's another example. As is one of those subordinating conjunctions. As you leave school, so it's a dependent clause. Got to have a comma at the end of the dependent clause. Got it? That makes sense? So here's the reason why I want you to memorize these, because anytime you see a sentence begin with one of them, I want you to be able to go, oh, the sentence just started with a subordinating conjunction, so it's going to create a dependent clause. I promise there's not very many black and white rules in English, but this is one of them. If you start a sentence with a subordinating conjunction, one of these words, it is going to create a dependent clause that needs a comma. Got it? Okay, so you absolutely want to memorize these, okay? All right, so Bryce, you're gonna wanna get out your notebook and write your these comma rules down, add to your old comma rules.
I think I might fail your class.
Oh, I hope not.
I did that last week.
Okay, so here we go. For homework tonight, do you have any of those notes? I didn't see any of your notes.
Yeah, they're on my journal. So I can put them in there.
So here's what I do. I would cut them out of my journal and I would paste them in there. And if you do that by tomorrow, I'll get the credit for this. Okay, we are going to do exercise 6 together, all right? So I want you to see if you can figure out where the commas need to go or where the commas need to be deleted. So some of these commas are right and some of these commas are wrong. So everybody do number 1 and then let's walk through number 1. We are on exercise 6 if you are joining us via Zoom, so what I want you guys to do I want you to go try to do it on your own, okay? And we'll be back.